for now that has calmed down. Matt Brown, Extra Point, joins us. Paul Craig. I'm David Smoak on 365 Sports. Matt, we were just talking about this. With the ACC thing at least calmed down, not sure what's going to happen with anything Pac-12 or whoever else. It does seem like things have cooled down a little bit. Do you notice that too?
I think on the Power 5 level, that's definitely true. I'm aware of some other conversations that are still happening with the WCC or the WAC or at the FCS level. But in terms of anything, seismic for power conferences, yes. And I don't think anybody would complain about that now that we have football games in just a couple of days.
Matt, we'll work through you blocking my number apparently here in a second. But FSU might not be working with complete data, or they just heard what they wanted to hear and ran with that number. They obviously have a lot of value. Do you think that they are realistically overvaluing themselves, or they're just doing that as part of their noise right now?
I would love to see the full research report for that FSU is using in their internal conversations right now about their television value or about the value of their particular brand. My understanding is that some of these claims are coming from metrics from ACC media rights consultants. Some of these may be coming from consultants, independent of what the conference is using. I can't speak to the validity of it without having a chance to see the report and run it through some industry people that I trust. The idea that Florida State, if conferences didn't exist and they joined the Big Ten or the SEC tomorrow, would be third in total revenue, which is, I believe, the quote from ESPN Story Today, that doesn't pass the sniff test for me. But whether it's third or whether it's sixth, does that change their core argument with the ACC? Probably not. I just wish I could see more information right now.
Matt, Brett Yormark had an interview today with John Hourand and Andrew Marchand, and I don't believe we've talked to you since everything kind of was finalized with the four corner schools, but we talked to you a lot in the build-up to it. Your thoughts on how that unfolded, Yormark, and company getting the job done that they had kind of let everybody know was the one they wanted to get done. They pulled it off.
Yeah, I mean, you could say this for Yormark and the Big 12 staff. None of this was a secret. They telegraphed their intentions. They telegraphed even that they were interested in some of these specific institutions for the last 9-10 months, if not more than that. And, to be fair to them, they've also telegraphed that, hey, we've been talking a lot with Gonzaga. We've been talking a lot with UConn. We've had conversations with a couple of other institutions. Like there's no secret to any of this. There were certainly times over the last 9 months that I thought it was going to be unlikely that the league got to this point. I don't think I fully appreciated, and maybe some of the people I was talking to didn't fully appreciate just how bad the Pac-12 television deal was. That was a little bit of a surprise, and we're starting to hear about just how badly so many smart people bungled to put things in that kind of position. Now you should have we already had an elite basketball league. You have an even more elite basketball league now. And now you have, I think, the difficult question, the difficult problem of now, governing this, of turning this into an operational league. And now you have 16 teams that are very different in many ways, and you have to get them to work together on football schedules and the kind of blocking and tackling part of running a conference. That's not easy. But the big, scary, moonshot goal here at the league had, they accomplished everything that they set out to do.
Yeah, and they're done, and they move forward. And, you look at the 5 commissioners, if you consider, again, what Kliavkoff, if he's even in that role anymore, what would your pecking order be right now for who's hot, like 1 through 5? Sankey's got to be at the top, right, because of just who he's been and how long he's been in the SEC?
Yeah, and I know this makes for lousy sports radio, but it's hard to rank that. I mean, Tony Petitti's been there for 9 weeks. Barely anybody in here in our footprint has talked to him. I've talked to him twice. Most national reporters haven't done more than that. And a lot of the Oregon and Washington acquisition, how much of that was him versus presidents versus happenstance? It's hard to say. I don't think we have enough information. We haven't seen your market through in a lens independent of marketing and realignment. And, I say this not pejoratively whatsoever. They've done a great job of setting the terms of the national conversation, of getting people talking about them, and then executing what they wanted to do. And if your footprint is Kansas State and Iowa State and Oklahoma, by God, you have to go stand up on your head. And if you want the national media to talk about you, and that's what he's been doing. I want to see what the Big 12 does when they have some disagreements that aren't about realignment and aren't about television and are about travel or about balanced schedules or about NIL or some of these other things. Sankey's the only guy that's been there for more than like 18 months. So we know how he and his constituents and his team respond to those kind of crises. There's a lot that a commissioner does besides decide which piece on the risk board they want to go after.
What do you think the future is for the Pac-4?
It's not good. Well, there's a couple of options here. It really kind of depends on what Stanford fundamentally wants to do. If Oregon State and Washington State decide that, hey, we still want to be in the big time football, big time sports game, you could potentially do something with the American. I don't think that really makes sense. That hasn't made sense to some of the industry folks that I've talked to, but we know it's an option. Or you could do something with the Mountain West. Stanford is this unique bird because they don't need to be playing a high level FBS football, both because of their endowment, because of their lack of donor and local fan pressure, and for what kind of institution they are. So if they want to go independent and sign something with NBC and park their other sports in the WCC or park them in the Big East or park them somewhere else, they can do that. And it doesn't matter if they lose $20 million. And that takes opportunities away or options away from Oregon State and Washington State and Cal. I know that Stanford, because of their brand, and this is elitist, but, elitism got the league into this mess. They don't want to go to Laramie. They don't want to associate their full athletic brand with the unwashed masses of the state schools and regional public institutions of the Mountain West. So whether that's independent, whether that's some kind of quasi-merger with the American, whether that's browbeating NC State's president into letting them in the ACC, I don't really know. I'd be a little surprised if all four of those schools end up doing the same thing, because they really don't have a whole lot in common right now, other than the fact that they don't have a place to go.
So the Florida State story, and it was a lot of bark, and unfortunately in the end for them, unfortunately, it's not going to happen, at least not now. But that doesn't mean this won't stir its ugly head or whatever again in about 9 or 10 months, will it?
No, I don't think it's going away at all.
Okay.
And quite frankly, I actually think, big picture, how Florida State decides to respond to the ACC is a bigger story than even anything that happened with the Big 12 or the Pac-12 over the past couple of weeks. And that's because of the report that Florida State is looking at getting into private fundraising from private equity and from institutional investors to buy its way out of that grant of rights and buy its way out of that ACC buyout. We're talking $450 million, spinning the rest of Florida State's media rights and assets into a holding company and selling equity into it, which is what the Pac-12 tried to do under Larry Scott. If they're able to pull that off, I think we have to realize here that every single conference affiliation, every single long-term contract, almost every assumption that we have about athletic departments at the highest of the high levels operating can no longer be taken for granted, because now there really is nothing stopping a Champions League, nothing stopping Morgan Stanley and the Saudi Sovereign Wealth Fund and BlackRock and three other rich guys from bankrolling a new thing to break up other leagues. I don't think sports fans in college fully appreciate how disruptive bringing in that kind of institutional investment might be, and that's what Florida State is looking to do. And when you listen to Weatherford and you listen to some of the regents talking about how they should approach college athletics, it's a very, very different argument from not just what you're hearing from leaders in the ACC, but different from what you're hearing in public from leaders of almost any FBS institution. It's a big deal.
Yeah, that's something that hasn't, like, most of the people think they're just going to give Florida State the money and then Florida State will, just have this partnership with this company as if it was Budweiser or something like that. But it's a whole lot different. No, because they've got to pay off their investors.
That's exactly it. And this isn't a kind of sweetheart deal where they're taking 3%. If somebody who's going to give you $450 million, knowing what they owe to their investors, is going to get involved, they're going to want a seat in governance. They're wanting seats on the board. They want to be involved here in the real estate deals that are happening around Doak Campbell. It's a much different thing, and there's precedent for this. This happens in high-level European soccer. But if you look at the kind of people that are throwing in that money and the control they have over those clubs, and when you look at an allegedly taxpayer-supported public institution, you are not going to like the kind of people that get involved in the decisions that they make about the rest of that department. It's not just like going to a bank.
We have Bruce Feldman, Matt, in about 20 minutes on his freaks list, and I saw one of the ones that you published, one of the videos of a guy laying on his back with with some weights in his right hand. He's 307-pound defensive lineman Chris Jenkins. They call him the mutant. Some of these stories of these players that Bruce has come up with, to me, are almost like comic book good. They're crazy, talented, and freakish.
Freakish really is the right word. I mean, fellas, I don't mind admitting this. I didn't know they made 170-pound dumbbells. If I am squatting 170 pounds, I'm feeling pretty good. Like I know I'm in my mid-30s. I'm trying to lose some weight, but I feel pretty good about that. That's clearly a denser metal that I was aware of. And then to do that with one hand and just pull yourself up off your back, I get that isn't a football maneuver, but I would not want to have anything to do with anybody who could pull off that kind of ridiculous raw strength. Imagine taking that guy and putting him in a football game with dudes in leather helmets that are still, smoking heaters on the sideline and eating nothing but red meat. Like it'd be like going against a guy from a different planet.
Last thing for you. Back on August the 15th, I think maybe it was even earlier than that, you said, I'm shutting down my laptop for the night. And then you were discussing EA Sports' college football and how they're going to handle rivalries. That was August the 8th. How often have you gone to shut down your laptop, something pops in your mind and you got to go back to it, or can you just walk away?
Man, I wish I could walk away. My wife begs me. My therapist begs me. We were just joking here at home that, like, you guys remember off seasons? Remember when, like, July was when we had to go dig into the newspapers.com archive and rank things from Mount Rushmore because there was nothing going on? It's been hard to do between realignment, between running a computer game, between trying to track, 19 different stories all at once. I have to, sometimes I really do have to say, okay, I'm closing the computer, stop DMing me, stop texting me, to hold myself accountable for it so I can last for the next couple of months. It's going to be a busy rest of the year.
Thank you, Matt. We appreciate what you do. Extra Points. Where are you with that athletic director model that you're trying to do the game?
Yeah, my friends, it's been out for a couple of weeks, and it's being used in college classrooms across the country, which is deeply funny to me when I hear about a school that I would have never gotten into as an undergrad has built this into their curriculum. I think we have a couple of sitting athletic directors who have scores in the top 15, but last time I checked, they're not in first. So if you want to give the game a spin, it's for premium subscribers up at extrapointsmb.com.
You got it, Matt. Thank you very much. Publisher of Extra Points with us. Great stuff, great opinions, and insight on many topics in college football.
It's like